like, we grew up with the internet, right? The guys that are 20 years older than us, our dads and our uncles and that have home service businesses, they didn't, So again, that was never their focus. They never thought they could leverage that. And I think if you're an entrepreneur, you are a disruptor, period. No matter, if you're the old guy, he was a disruptor beforehand, just in a different way, right? And so we're disruptors. And the one way to disrupt, especially over the last 5 to 10 years was...
Welcome to the Kooler Lifestyle Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Kuehlhorn, and I'm excited to have you join me as I interview community members and business leaders from the communities in which I live, work, and serve through my business Kooler Garage Doors. We're going to bring you highlights on characters in our communities. Why? Because community matters, and I want to know more about who is behind our business and leadership in order to understand and support the community fabric that our relationships make up. And collectively, we can build stronger communities that support our lifestyles, our youth, and our health.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Kooler Lifestyle Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Kuehlhorn. Today, I'm sitting down with Benny Fisher. I'm incredibly excited to talk with Benny. Benny is a visionary at the Big Fish Contracting Company. He's also a host of the Big Fish Cares podcast. And Benny, I'm really excited to get into a couple of different things. Branding, I know our conversation is going to have some inspiration mixed into it. And then I also want to touch on masterminds because I have where that you have started one. And just in general, man, thank you for showing up. I appreciate you. You and I connected really through Gary V's world of VCon and VFriends, and I've seen you online in social. So I'm excited to talk. Thanks so much for showing up.
Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate you getting up real early. I know we have a 2-hour time difference between us, so this is sweet.
Yeah.
'Cause I like the morning podcast because this is where I get all my energy.
Yeah, same. I feel crystal clear in the mornings. So good stuff, Benny. Just to build a little bit of context, where did you grow up?
I grew up in Canton, Ohio, where the Pro Football Hall of Fame is. So I was there until I was 29 years old, and then I moved to Pittsburgh to help my uncle with sales and marketing at his roofing company.
Gotcha.
And I've been here in Pittsburgh for going on 14 years, I guess. I'm 42 years old, so
Yeah,
I've had two
right on.
lives. I've had my Ohio life and my Pittsburgh life.
I've picked that up a little bit. What was Ohio like growing up for you? What was childhood like?
We went to church every Sunday, every Wednesday. We were, independent Baptists. So life was pretty strict, lots of rules, regulations. I had sometimes a tough time in school because I had the ADHD, and in the late 80s, that's when I was starting to get diagnosed. And so, smart kid. I'm a smart kid, but I'd like to talk too much in school. So it's funny now I get paid to talk, it's just crazy because they always used to try to shut me up. And so
Right.
I'm showing all the teachers, it's possible. So, there's ups and downs, a lot of good times, some not so good times. There was, I started selling cars in my early 20s because I didn't want to go to college. And I thought you could make a bunch of money selling cars, and no one in my family ever was rich per se, right? Like now nobody had regular jobs at the hospital or the steel mill. And I always wanted to go out and make something of myself because I always heard everyone complain about money, right? And not loving what they do. So I tried that, and I would get fired from every single car job I ever had because, then I would get back then it was before social media. So you just had to wait for people to come in, and
Right.
I got bored, right? Waiting for people to come in. And so ended up getting into selling drugs, which, that wasn't a pleasant experience. I went through a lot of adversity. I was bankrupt in my 20s. I was homeless for a couple of days in my 20s. I got robbed at gunpoint, pistol whipped over the head, car stolen, 2 felonies. Then my uncle calls me up, who's been roofing, his whole life. And he said, "Hey, I started my commercial roofing business. Why don't you move to Pittsburgh and get yourself a new life started?" And I said, "Man, that sounds great. Fresh opportunity. I could become a new me, get away from all those, just that environment, right?"
Yeah.
So, that's a little bit of the background.
So you got into Pittsburgh, and I appreciate you sharing that background. I should probably sidestep here and say, one of the things I really respect and honor about you is the transparency you have. In one of your podcasts on your show, you have the story of Benny, and you really highlight a lot of that. And I think all of this journey with us starts informing and presses into where we are now and becomes part of our story, but it also fuels us on some ways. So I just really respect that. And you can tell that there's a lot of inner work and the inner lifting has happened in order to be able to talk about it and just be vulnerable with it. So I honor that. As you get into Pittsburgh and start running sales and marketing, is that how the Big Fish contracting, is that an evolution of it? Is that another entity that you ultimately put in together? How did Big Fish form?
Yeah. So, my uncle was a little old school and, wasn't the biggest fan of technology and apps and, social media, and I tried to implement some of that stuff, right? Because I was learning about that stuff. This is like 2010 to 2015 era. And there's a lot of cool stuff coming out in the roofing space. And, me and him just had different things that we wanted to do. And that's when I started to learn from Gary Vee a little bit on social media, right? I would start to hear him and had all these cool ideas. And, much like in school or like when I was at home with my parents, it felt like, it's like no one wanted to hear my ideas. Like nobody wanted to help me achieve these things. And me and my uncle ended up parting ways. He ended up firing me. And I didn't really have a choice. I was like, in this town, I didn't really, I knew some people, but I didn't, it was just through working for him. I had, I had a 1-year-old son. I had just gotten married. Had a mortgage, just bought a house, and here I am, got some bills to pay. I think my wife was only working part-time at the time. She's my ex-wife now, but and it was go. What else are you going to do, man? Luckily I got the felonies expunged in 2012 because, I never had a record. So I could have went and worked for the biggest roofing company in Pittsburgh, but I was like, I'm just going to run into the same thing. I told myself what's going to be different? So I just got to do it myself. And, and Gary's always in your ear and say, yeah, you can do it. You can do it. You can do it. And I didn't know him at the time. Now we have a pretty good relationship, but I didn't know him at the time at all. But he was my inspiration. He was the first guy that believed in me. I was borrowing this belief of a human, a make-believe. I thought I was almost like a make-believe human on social media.
Yes. I
just went out and did it. And I started with brand in mind. We call it the Big Fish Contracting Company because last name's Fisher and I'm not a small guy. And nobody had a branded company. Nobody had a branded roofing company or pretty much any home service company in 2015 in Pittsburgh. It was pretty much the old school. Everybody used their last name. And so much like you, could play a little play off your last name. I played a little play off my last name because I feel like, people buy off people they know, like, and trust.
Yeah.
And so, and people thought I was crazy. They're like, people are going to think that you're doing something on Three Rivers, that you're selling fish sandwiches, or you're selling, you're renting out boat equipment. And I'm like, not when we become the best residential roofing contractor in Pittsburgh. And here we are with over 750 5-star reviews. And now it's just assumed, everybody knows what Big Fish does.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm gathering this sense. I always use the culture index because I've gone deep on that just to assess personalities. But you're certainly a trailblazer. Would you agree with that?
Oh, yeah. Yep, I definitely would agree with that.
Just an unhirable trailblazer.
Yeah. Yeah. Saying that, for 99.999% of the world, I'd be unhireable. I do believe that there's a couple visionaries out there that have bigger visions than I do that would see a guy like me and know how to put me to use and let me operate in my unique ability. So now that I know that, but it's back then, if you're just applying at jobs on LinkedIn, yeah, you're right. I am never going to find a job on LinkedIn where someone's going to be able to handle my energy. Now, if I meet somebody at a conference, that's got a $250 million company, for instance, Gary's a good example of this. Gary knows my personality, knows what I could do. If he had a spot somewhere where he needed me to help grow something, right, he could just set me loose.
Yep.
And, obviously we'd have to put some guardrails in place, but, I'm a lot more, I like a little bit of structure now. I operate well in structure. That's why I love EOS so much, is because I thrive in a little bit of structure. Not too much, just a little bit.
Yep. Now, I'm glad you brought EOS up too. We can integrate that a little bit. I want to dive back into brand. How do you define brand?
Brand to me is the emotion that people feel about when they see your company or hear about your company. And to me,
I love that.
That's really all it boils down to.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing for the employees, not only customers, but employees. It's like, how do people feel about you when they hear about your brand or they see your brand?
I love that definition. Super clear. How do you lead it, create it, form it?
Well, like now or back then in the early days, because there's like a couple different stages, right? Like for me, it was like just me to customers, right? It was just all about me providing great service for customers, kind of like the Chick-fil-A model, right? Love them, serve them, make them raving fans. And, you can create that emotion. And then sprinkle in content, right? Because sales is one-to-one, marketing is one-to-many. And so it's basically a lot of the same skills, but you're more at a higher level, more macro-based brand awareness, and trying to get that emotion through different mediums in marketing and advertising. And so, and then it's hiring the right people, right? And getting people that align with your core values, people that align with like your mission, right? People that are excited like you are about what we're doing. And so then that way you have a bunch of mini-me's out there running around, praising big fish from the rooftops, doing a good job for customers. And so that way you can keep kind of it going forever, hopefully.
Yeah. Yeah. So for listeners, especially if you're running a company, I mean, brand is this feeling. I agree with that. And what I'm hearing, Benny, is initially, if it's a solopreneur or just a couple of people, like it really extends from the feeling that owner gives and brings with them. And that ties into core values that can then be leveraged and extended through a team.
Yep.
Maybe a summation. When you talk about, and I've seen this in garage doors, I've seen this in home services, there's old school and there's new school. I think that there's a pretty significant disruption happening right now in the industry of trades. And new school has the branding. New school is using a lot of technology. Old school is not. They're using the last names and maybe a little type on a truck kind of thing. Where do you think this is stemming from? Like, what's the drive in it? Is it from tech? Is it from just awareness? Is it just a natural evolution of business industry?
Well, I just think obviously, I think, like, I don't know how old you are. Me and you are probably the same age. It's like, we grew up with the internet, right? The guys that are 20 years older than us, our dads and our uncles and have home service businesses, they didn't, So again, that was never their focus. They never thought they could leverage that. And I think if you're an entrepreneur, you are a disruptor, period. No matter, if you're the old guy, he was a disruptor beforehand, just in a different way, right? And so we're disruptors. And the one way to disrupt, especially over the last 5 to 10 years, was leverage technology. And then as soon as a couple of the visionaries came out with like the branding, right? As soon as one person goes, then somebody else gets the idea, they look, and it's like, oh, wow, like I want to do that. Now, a lot of guys just try to throw up a pretty cool graphic design and a logo on their van, and they call that branding. And to me, that's just a really cool truck wrap. Brand, that doesn't get the emotion of the feeling through the customer service portal and the employee journey. So you got to be careful with that. There's a lot of fakes out there, right? We can throw a big fish, you can throw a cooler on, and call it whatever else you want. But if they don't have the right people delivering on that brand will just be poo-poo. So there's going to be a lot of confusion going on right now in the marketplace because there's, just like with anything else, just like there was back in the old days, you could have Bob Smith Roofing and Joe Richards Roofing, and Joe might be great and Bob might be bad. And guess what? And people are going to know. The people in the community talk about that. Oh yeah, go with Bob, don't go with Joe, or go, vice versa. And it's like, and so that's no different. It's just louder now, and it's actually, you're either going to have a really good brand or a really poopy brand. And it's kind of like Chick-fil-A and McDonald's. I mean, look at those guys. Like, what's the feeling that you get when you go and see the McDonald's logo now versus when you see the Chick-fil-A logo? And that's the way I would explain it in this new generation that's coming up in home services. It's like, if there's a bad brand out there, like, you're going to feel that, right? Like, there's one in my town that does HVAC. And man, dude, people freaking hate them. But they're a machine, they just go get new customers, and they just they have such a good customer acquisition model that like they can stomach it.
Keep churning through. That's a good analogy of McDonald's, Chick-fil-A. And that does elicit a feeling. So as a tech guy, as a social media guy, I'm hearing Gary right now really beating the drum of brand is built in social. So how have you incorporated this for Big Fish and your brand and even your personal brand? And then how, what kind of tips might there be from you to help people get going if they not already have this machine built out?
Oh, there's a lot of that's a loaded question.
It's loaded.
That might be a whole podcast in and of itself. But
yeah, fair.
So I think at first, you have to have some type of consistency, right? And so you have to be able to tell your story, right? A lot of people, if you're a humble guy, right, which a lot of people are humble, right? So humble that they're afraid to tell their story, right? And that's not actually good because you got to get your message out. NBC News isn't coming to your office to do a piece on you, and if they do, it's usually going to be about a bad story. It's not going to be a good story. So. You're going to have to you have to be your own media company. And the best way to do that and the most effective way and cost-effective way is like, for instance, Facebook, and most of your consumers are still on Facebook. And I built this company on Facebook and I use my own personal page. I had a Big Fish Contracting, business page, but nobody goes to the business pages because Facebook doesn't allow that to get out to the people as much. So I used Benny Fisher on Facebook and just told people what I was doing. Oh, I didn't overwhelm them, right? It's, kind of like Gary says, jab, 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 right hook. It was like, hey, show a picture of my baby. I'm going to the Pittsburgh sports game. I'm going on vacation. I saw something really cool. I give them some value. And then, by the way, hey, we're at a customer's house today. We're doing this roof project. Check out what Mrs. Jones' house is going to look like. It's just being a good human and showing people what you're up to because, people don't want to buy a roof every day. They don't want to buy a garage door every day, right? Garage doors, right? Probably once every 10 years maybe, and they got to have service, every couple years? Yeah. You're probably got a little bit more repeat business than I get. But like for roofs, it's 20, 30 years before I'll ever see those people again. So I can't just pump them with like, hey, roof all day. Because 97% of the people aren't ready to buy from me.
That's right. So if I'm to extract any like tidbits there, it's get going and just share components of the personal along with some of the professional.
Yeah, educate and entertain. And
educate and entertain. Yeah,
educate and entertain. Try not to sell anything. Try the least salesy you come across in your marketing. We call that big time macro brand awareness. That's what's going to drive that. You use Google ads and use advertisements to like maybe sell. But when you're developing brand awareness ads, try not to be like, hey, $500 off, we'll get you a roof today, or, hey, right. call me up. I'll give you $100 off of a service call. Like, it just sounds too thirsty. I call that commission breath. You don't have commission breath in the marketing message. So like marketing and sales are two distinct departments. The problem is most small businesses, they don't have a marketing department. So like they're usually a sales guy trying to learn how to market. And dude, it's hard. You almost got to become two different people and you have to think of it in two different ways. Marketing is a lot softer, right? It's not as hard. Sales is a little bit more focused and hard, right? And so you got to draw a delineation between that. And that's tough for most people, especially because most people don't know anything about marketing. They see marketing and they think they can just copy that. But if they don't really truly understand it, and then, that's why I love, working with Joseph Hughes at Contractor Dynamics. They're a marketing training firm in the roofing industry specifically. We only train entrepreneurs and their marketing managers on how to understand marketing. We don't do it for them. We just try to educate them on brand awareness and marketing and ads and all the differences, because there really is no courses or really good curriculum out there. It's kind of like everyone's just copying what they see and trying a bunch of stuff. Blow $1 million, 500,000 of it might be good. 500,000, you probably just put down the toilet and keep learning like that. But that's not very efficient because there's guys that have done it before, right? And I've made a lot of mistakes in marketing. I've paid those prices, and so now it's my mission to kind of help other guys and other contractors how to avoid some of those pitfalls, to try to just kind of steer them in the right direction, because their message can still be unique, but the methods are not that unique.
Yeah. No, I love the distinction here, Benny, because I'm hearing the brand is this emotional feeling. Marketing is utilizing emotional intelligence and empathy to communicate that emotion. Sales is the tactical, logical, here's my pricing, there's where the decimal point goes, here's how we transact kind of deal.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, marketing is just the machine or the act of promoting the brand.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like the business of brand promotion.
Love it. Benny, what drives you? What inspires you? What pops you out of bed in these mornings?
To be the best version of myself, because I know when I'm the best version of myself, I'm going to make the biggest impact on people. And I believe that we all have a purpose on this earth. And I believe it's first of all to get to know who we are, so that way we can live our own authentic life full of enthusiasm and energy, and to be able to inspire others to be able to do the same. So that way we can all live in a better place.
I love that. Where does that come from?
Jesus.
Love it. In your career, it seems as though you have this really cool opportunity in transition. You are exploring EOS as an implementer and assisting others. You're coming from this space of serving others, whether it's customers or entrepreneurs, and you formed a mastermind group. And I want to hear a little bit about that. And also go into like, what is around the corner? What are you excited for in the future?
Yeah, so I mean, I've been blessed. I followed that EOS model, and I read that book Rocket Fuel, and it really helped me understand the differences between like the skill sets that I have as a visionary versus like what an operator's skill sets are. And and then they say you got to get out of your own way, right? You got to delegate and elevate, because if you don't, you're going to be doing everything, and your company's not going to grow. And then you're also going to be miserable because you can't do it all. And you're going to want to do it all because you have that driven gene. So over the last, I've been out of the day-to-day at Big Fish for about a year and a half, coming up on 2 years in April. And so partnered up with Joseph Hughes, who's doing that marketing training education. So I facilitate group coaching calls for his high-ticket people in that group, the marketing training program. And then me and him also just founded a small mastermind called The Arena. And we plan on making it the number one, and it's for all contractors. See, Contractor Dynamics, their marketing program is just for roofers only. Well, what was happening is Joe had such a great personal brand. Like everybody knows who Joe is, but like, you might be in the garage door business and, we can't help you as a client, and so like I told Joe, I said, man, you got this great personal brand. So we got to help these guys, not just with roofing marketing tactics. I said, like, we need to help these guys with their business life. I said, these guys they got questions. They want community. They want to know where all the good guys are. Right. And I've been a part of a lot of good masterminds and bad masterminds. And I was like, you know what, let's just build our own mastermind, the best of our ability, all the good stuff that we've seen, we'll make sure that we have none of that bad stuff. And so we started in November. We already have over 30 people in our group. It's growing. I think we're going to probably have over 100 by the end of the year. We plan on having some events. And we're just having a good time. We're bringing in special guest speakers, because we know a bunch of different people in the industry and outside the industry, and we can add a lot of value there. Where like, a lot of people don't have the money or don't want to go spend time at conferences and events. We can kind of bring that to you virtually, so you can still kind of have that feel and drip it out over a year, right? And not just like me and you've been to a lot of conferences. You go there 2-3 days, you're like overwhelmed with all this information. Yeah, you can't even implement it all. And then you lose track with your buddies there, right? Like, this is the first time I talked to you since I saw you at VCon, really, except in the chat. So it's like, if we're in the groups together, we're seeing each other on a more consistent basis, right? We can form longer term relationships, because entrepreneurship is really lonely. And it was lonely for me, I can tell you that. In 2017, I almost died of a fentanyl overdose because I was doing drugs to be able to try to keep it all together, right? My business was going good. I was trying to become a better dad and husband. But inside I was full of pain because I didn't have the systems and processes. I didn't know who I was. And I was trying to be all these different things to all these different people. And I was breaking down inside. And so, but God saved my life again, right? He gave me another chance. And I was like, what? I said, what is it about me that God wants me to do? And I got closer to him and I found those answers. And it's really to help people not have to go through that pain. And any pain that they have, let's transform that pain into purpose. And that's what I really love to do. The marketing, the branding, the sales, the EOS, the business, what we do, that's all just a trick, man. Like, we're just all in personal development. And entrepreneurship is a great way to personally develop, right? Because you can build a team of people around you to help you.
Yes. So good, man. I love that. I love the mission. I love the clarity. It's on point. All right. How do people get a hold of you? If we're interested in the mastermind, if we're interested in just connecting with Benny, where do we find you? How do we learn more?
BennyFisher.com.
Right on. Easy enough.
Yeah. You go to BennyFisher.com. You'll see the arena in there. Under organizations, you'll see the podcast under podcast. If you want to book me as a speaker, you'll see that. I haven't officially been through the EOS boot camp. You mentioned about being an implementer. I'm going to be the opening keynote speaker at the EOS conference this year, which is like this crazy dream manifested thing that came to fruition. They called me out of the blue, and I was just like, wow. I said, I can't even believe this is happening. And Gina Wickman's the closing keynote speaker, which is like an amazing human being. And then I just started thinking about it. And I was like, man, I said, like, the contractor dynamics thing, the mastermind, the group coaching, I spend about, maybe 10 hours a week doing that, and people want my help. Like, I want to go into other industries. I want to go help other leadership teams. I want to help visionaries break free, right? I want to help integrators be able to learn how to deal with visionaries, right? Because that's a skill, right? Because it's hard to deal with us visionaries, right? I want to be able to help visionaries' wives, right? Like, my wife has a passion to be able to do that, because like, it's hard to deal with us. I'm sure your wife, your wife probably knows.
Yes.
And so we almost need to form a women's support group for all the visionaries, right? Because like, that's a real thing. And and I just want everybody to be healthy. That's all.
So good, man. I'm really excited to see you in VCon in another few months. It's late this year, August.
I'm glad, man. It gives me some more time to like get some other stuff done, because May comes up quick. I have a busy schedule, so I'm actually glad. For me personally, I'm loving that it's in August, and I'm still glad that it's before school starts. So that way I can bring my boy, even though it's during football. See, that's the other problem. Football starts. He's gonna have to miss a week of football. But I told him, I said, "You want to go to VCon?" He's like, "Oh yeah, Dad." He's like, "We're going to VCon."
I was going to ask you if he's coming again. That's awesome. So good.
I'm bringing the whole family, man, because that is a family affair. That is an amazing place to find good humans.
It is. And I think we might have 3 generations. I might bring my dad in. So real quick aside.
Is he going to wear a matching suit?
I'm going to have to make him. I mean, he's going to have to. So real quick aside, we'll wrap this conversation up. But when I was my boy's age, 11, 12, 13, my dad took me backpacking. He doesn't have a real backpacking ground. So we've got 3 years of just hilarious stories as we're learning how to go backpacking. And it was this coming of age kind of experience. And so when I saw VCon and VFriends drop, I was like, all right, this is our version, our next generation with my boy Taj and I. And so this will be our 3rd year. And I invited the old man, and if he's showing up, he's in a white suit, and we'll represent again. And so good.
I'm looking forward to that. Yeah, you and your dad should do a little mini podcast on all the backpacking stories.
It would be all right. Done. Done. All right, Benny. Let's wrap this up. I'll include your website and contact details in our show notes. Again, brother, I really appreciate the clarity you have on your mission, your drive and passion. I can feel it. I see it. And I just honor it. So thank you for your time today. I'm excited to get our story out, and we'll talk to you very soon.
Thanks.